I know many times people, like when it comes to election times, we have a lot of anxiety, right? And we're just really fearful, and right? I mean, it's sort of natural, really. But I remind myself that after Election Day, God's not surprised. No. He's not. It's like he already knows everything. He is outside and encompassing all things, including the dimensions of time and space. It's really great to have God like that. I'm reading a book, or I'm trying to do an audio book by, William Lane Craig. It's very challenging, Christian philosopher. But it is very reassuring when you look at it just from a basic philosophy perspective, how assuring it is to know personally, in a real way, a God who is so providential in the affairs of men, as he's shown in history, but also as he promises for the future. After every election, especially the ones I'm disappointed in, sometimes I'll turn to the book of Revelations, and I just flip through a page, next page, all still there, no blanks, no words are taken out, it's all there, and it's just sort of an assurance. So sometimes nations go through times when God gives them great blessings, and then other times nations have hard times, or discipline, or even judgment. And I don't know. I can't say where our nation is in how where we're at right now. I don't know, but I do know that God is involved, and that in all things He will be glorified, whether in times of blessing or in times of discipline, or even judgment. So I want to encourage everyone on that. Also, our nation has gone through cycles before. So a little bit of history. Who knows when we had the lowest church attendance in the United States history? Do you have any idea what? It was right after the Revolutionary War. That was our lowest church attendance. People were despondent, discouraged, didn't know about the future. That was our downtime. And then what happened as we went into the early 1800s? We had a great pouring out of the work of God, and going through the 1800s, the Wild West was tamed, and the brothels were shut down, and people in the churches sprung up, and it was incredible revival. And then we had the 1920s, where it was the Roaring '20s. It was the greedy 20s. It was, let's break away from family and our values, and let's just live life, let everything go. If it feels good, do it. 20s. Yeah. And then what happened? What happened when this looked like it was just an infinite projection in the wrong direction? What happened? God interrupted that trend line with the Great Depression, the Great Dust Bowl, and a war that put our very survival at issue, in question. And with that, He humbled our nation, and we turned to Him, and Sunday schools sprouted up, and a man named Billy Graham began his ministry. And so I just want to encourage us, even in the 60s when things seemed so glim, we had the Jesus Revolution. So never give up on God, because historically, He never gives up on what He wants to do through us as His children. That's sort of my encouraging note moving forward. So at the same time, God also wants us to be obedient, right? Some people say, why should churches get involved? Why should they register voters? Why should people of faith even vote? Well, I will say clearly, God is the one who raises up and God brings down, right? He's the one who does that. And He knows the future. So why should Christians be involved? I'll tell you why, for two reasons. One is we're commanded to be good citizens in Romans chapter 13. And we as citizens have authority as voters. We have that authority. And the question is, are we going to use that authority for the glory of God or for something else? But He's given us that authority. And if we skirt that authority, we're being disobedient to being good citizens and be good stewards with what God's given us. He's also wants us to speak up for the needy, for those who can't speak up for themselves. That's not just an idea, that's an exhortation we have. And it's multiple places in Scripture. For the sake of time, I won't get into that. But do we have those in our society today, and where we are in history right now in 2024, that need someone to speak up for them, the preborn, right? What about the kids in our public schools, which I now call spiritual death camps? And that's what they've become statistically. It's not just statistically. They have become spiritual death camps. And yet that's one reason I'm so encouraged when I see people of faith become teachers and administrators in public schools to make a difference, as well as others starting church homeschool co-ops, which is something we at Pacific Justice assist with as well in helping those happen in our society today. And another reason we need to get involved, and I think one really the most important, is our testimony. It's our testimony. So let's say, if a church, in my opinion, is filled with the love of Jesus, then they're going to care about people outside their church walls. We can't help it, right? You can't help but care about people outside your church walls. If you have the love of Jesus, it's like, you have to, right? So in a church that truly cares about people outside their church walls is a church that should be voting and registering people to vote. Not because of the results. I surrender the fact God, in the end of the day, he's the one that raises up and brings down. I don't worry about that. But our testimony I am concerned about, because that's where obedience comes into play. And don't worry, if you don't think it matters for your testimony, the secular society out there, who are the pollsters, who watch who votes and who doesn't, they are watching. And they're observing whether or not we show the semblance of what we profess to have, which is that we have the love of Christ compelling us to care. And they know if we truly care, they know we're going to register to vote and we're going to vote. It's about obedience. And the results, you can leave that up to God. We at Pacific Justice have a lot of cases ongoing right now in litigation. If you want to keep up with our cases, it means a lot to me. If you could fill out that little card. Can you wave it up there, sir? Like everyone can see it, that little card right there. So if you're a true American and you really care about people, you want to, no, but if you want to keep up with our cases, that was a joke, okay. All right, no, but if, I used to say, if you're really saved, then fill out this, no. But lightning bolt, I gotta be careful. God knows my humor, so anyway, but if you could, if you want to keep up with our cases, it means a lot to me personally, it really would. So if you could please fill that out, that'd be awesome. I'd love to keep you up. If you want to support our work on a one-time or a monthly basis, that'd be great. Monthly is awesome, or one time is awesome because it's like a gift package to soldiers at at Christmas time. Monthly, though, is even more valuable because what do they want more than that little care package? Is they want bullets every month. And our attorneys know when we have monthly support, that is giving us the bullets that we have to, with confidence, take the next hill, the next hill, and the next hill. And that's really important. So I just want to encourage you to do that. We right now have over 260 cases in active litigation. It's a lot of cases, and they're growing. Huh? Yeah, we'll talk afterwards. Because we have 6 offices here in California. We have 36 across the country in 26 states. No organization has the large footprint that God's given us by His grace. And we've got also a radio program. It's on over, we have a great show. It's called the Dacus Report, over 800 radio outlets across the country. The guy who does it is awesome. I mean, he is probably my favorite. Okay, it's my show, but it's a good show. It really, anyway. How many have heard the show before? Raise your hands. Okay, very good. A number of you have. And every side, very good. And then also his channel, we have Brad Dacus Live. Anyone seen that show before, Brad Dacus Live? Okay, yeah, thank you, sir. Even if you didn't, just thanks for raising your hand. No, just makes me feel so much better. And so, yeah, because I was going to go, anyone? No. So we've got another one called Faith and Law, and it's on 34 networks, distribution channels. So we're getting out information. We also have a legislative office that works with legislators to enable them to pass laws that, when requested by the legislator, of course, because we do not lobby, but we respond to their requests to help them with pro-religious freedom legislation, pro-parents' rights, pro-life, and so those kind of works. And then we also are actively involved in empowering churches, and then I get to also guest preach on Sundays which I love to do. So anyway, we have a lot of challenges we're facing. I'd love to talk about our cases, but I know why we're here. We want to hear from the candidates about the issues that we're facing here today. So I'm not going to spend any more time talking at this time, which is hard for a lawyer to say. I'm just telling you. It really is. So especially when the billable hours are going, but I don't have, okay. So anyway, I would like the candidate for Congress to come to the stage here, please. And let's give him a big round of applause. Thank you. Thank you, David.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Sir, have a seat.
Thank you.
And so you're here to be questioned, and you didn't bring anyone else here to hold your hand.
Nope.
No running mate or anything. You're just
Nobody
here.
with me. No notes.
No notes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's someone I think that could, running for office that could really use your assistance in
Sure.
that area. So, but it is nice to have someone who's willing to appear here and answer questions, no notes, straightforward, speaking from the heart, from the conscience. It's very refreshing to see that. I wish all politicians were like
Thank
that. Some are, but not all of them. And I think that's great.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I keep hoping every time that door opens that I'm like a kid on Christmas Eve hoping that Santa's going to walk in through the door. But I feel like we have just about as a good opportunity of Santa walking in through that door as Mark Takano walking in through a door in his own district.
Yeah. Now, once again, is Mark Dacano, are you here? Are you here? Because I will give up this, we'll bring up, okay. So I heard from someone secondhand. Mm-hmm. So I heard from someone that supposedly, I guess he was booked or something, supposedly, but then I heard from someone that actually has nothing this night scheduled. So I don't know why he's not here, but we'll just leave it at that. For whatever reason, he's not here. So that means we have more time to ask you questions.
Thank you.
And I'm going to ask you some curveballs.
Okay, great.
Some really tough ones. So what's your favorite ice cream? Yeah, oh, that's right. That's the Biden questions. I forgot. That's what I was supposed to ask Biden. Okay. So let's start with fiscal issues.
Okay, great.
Before we lose people, let's start with that one right up front. Fiscal issues. So a lot of people have criticized government, both Republicans and Democrats, that we have tremendous deficit spending. Mm-hmm. I know when we had the pandemic, the Trump administration had to print the bills after everything was shut down, and then after everything was opened up, the Biden administration decided to print more bills. Mm-hmm.
Correct.
And to expand spending dramatically. But there's still a big concern that those in Washington are not realizing the long-term ramifications of accumulating to the debt, and the fact that this is something that we're really putting on our children.
Correct.
What say you, and do you have any resolution as to, if you were elected to Congress, what you would support to help bring that in check?
Well, one of the big reasons why I decided to run for Congress is because Congress has the power of the purse. We get to decide after an audit, oh, you know what? You didn't spend the money the way that you said that it was going to be spent, then we're going to cut off your funding. And what's happened is, both on the state level and on the federal level, is we no longer expect to get results from our government. The Department of Defense has failed its 6th consecutive audit, unable to account for 61% of $3.5 trillion throughout the globe. And that's in weapons, that's assets, that's liquid capital. And of course, that number's probably gone up with all the weapons that were left in Afghanistan that were not supposed to be operable, that we saw flying through the air and going down the street. And so there's a lot that can be done. But the problem is, we don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem. We had $24 billion go missing from the state's budget without any repercussions that was supposed to address the homelessness. We voted for $1 billion in arts and music funding as Californians, only to have Governor Newsom cut $1.2 billion in arts and music funding the next year. And so we've gotten used to it, and we've accepted not getting results. And so what I would like to do, going back to your question, is I would like to audit the spending, but then what is an audit without repercussions? What does it mean if we keep doing these audits for the Department of Defense and then we just give them more money and we increase their budget more? And so there are a lot of money laundering operations that are at play both in California, nationally and internationally, and that's our money. We're funding 70% of the world's authoritarian dictatorships, and I look at all that money that's leaving the United States, and I think, aren't our problems here? Shouldn't we be spending that money here? Because the rapid devaluation of the dollar is something that we've been able to see in our grocery prices, our energy cost, and when you're sending so much of that abroad and destabilizing the world at the same time, it ends up in a complicated situation where now the world is looking for a different reserve currency. And then you see BRICS coming to fruition, and you see a lot of people responding to our sanctions and to our weaponization of our own dollar. And when you continue to act that belligerently on the world stage by printing money, handing it out, and then telling people to spend it at the point of a gun, you can't be surprised when the rest of the world starts to react to that.
Yeah, good. So you mentioned energy. Let's talk about that.
I'd love to.
The Biden-Harris administration decided to close off drilling on federal lands in Alaska and other places, and instead they wanted to invest billions of dollars in solar and wind power and things like that.
Money laundering.
Money laundering. Very good. But in Trump, his policy is, look, we need to drill, baby, drill. That's his words, not mine. Drill, baby, drill, and let's open up Alaska, and then use that revenue to go against the debt. What do you think about that? Many people don't want more drilling. They think it's going to hurt the environment. Is that your position? And how do you respond to someone saying, if we drill in America, it's only going to hurt the environment versus if we buy the oil from other countries?
That's a great way to phrase that question. I am of the mentality of it's time to drill, baby, drill. And when you look at a divided, conquered, and colonized country, which is what we are, we look at our natural resources not being controlled by the people. The people are they're capitalizing on the lithium, the uranium, and the oil. Instead of banking on abundance, they want to capitalize on scarcity. They want to make it so that they shut down our energy grid. 2 years ago in California, nuclear energy accounted for 32% of our grid. Well, we shut down San Onofre nuclear power plant. We plan to shut down Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant, but the federal government actually had to step in because not only is oil incredibly important, and the state of California actually owns 600 active oil permits on over 200,000 acres. So it's not like California is not oil rich. In fact, we are the third most oil rich state in the country. We are a rich country and a rich state. And not only are we rich in oil, we have lithium out here in the Salton Sea. Yeah. We have uranium in both San Bernardino and in the northeast part of our state. And uranium, when we enrich uranium, nuclear energy is the future. And at one point we knew that in this country. We built 48 nuclear power plants in a 5-year period in this country, only to freak out after 3 Mile Island. And how many people died in 3 Mile Island? Anybody know? Zero. How many nuclear deaths have we had in this country? Zero. What about PG&E? Well, PG&E has been tried for manslaughter. And so I'm tired of bailing out these private energy companies which are not doing their job. I'm tired of being charged exorbitantly for our bill and then charged a third time for solar because they're not doing their job. And then we have to bail these companies out. And so I would like to see America as a business. If we are a business, and that's what we are a corporation, well, businesses have a product. And that product should be uranium, lithium, oil, water, etc. Because I don't want to subsidize these companies to then turn around and sell it to us again on the other side. Well, I remember when I was growing up, gasoline was 88 cents a gallon. and I could go anywhere, do anything that I want as a kid. Now we are having our mobility limited, and I'm sorry that I'm going off so long. I'm actually grateful he's not here because I have an opportunity to speak to these things at length. There's so much that needs to be talked about. But the reason why they're outlawing your gas stove is because we just found 500 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. The reason why they are outlawing the internal combustion engine is because we are one of the most oil-rich states in the country. And so California is the breadbasket of this country. True or not true? Okay, Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe. True or not true? Okay, and then Iran is the breadbasket of the Middle East. Are we sensing a pattern? And so when we go after states like California in our energy policy and in our water policy, what we're really doing is we're realizing that we are being conquered and colonized, and they are rationing our resources back to us. In Alaska, they had an oil dividend. I look at this stuff and I say, we as American taxpayers have been investing in this American corporation for 250, 60, 70 years. When is the last time we were paid a dividend? So if we were able to not only balance our budget, but operate on a surplus by cutting spending that we don't need to be spending on things like war, I would love to see that money be recirculated back to the American people so that we could spend that money here, because we spend so much in taxes, just as Californians, in federal income taxes, that every man, woman, and child would get $6,012 annually or $501 a month back from the federal government, just if we stop paying federal income taxes.
Yeah, what would you say to someone, though, who is, say they're from the Ukraine, and are you saying that you think the United States should cut off all of our military support for Ukraine and leave that for the Europeans to fund? Or
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know a lot of really wonderful people, but is it compassion for us to continue to fund this war where 400,000 Ukrainians have died? No. Was it 400,000, 300,000? 500,000 Russians?
Yeah.
Almost 1 million human beings in that region of the world. And so myself, as a combat veteran who's been on the front lines, I fired a machine gun at human beings. And I want someone in a position of policy to work as aggressively towards peace as our current representation works towards war.
Donald Trump says that he will end the war once he's elected. Do you believe he would?
I believe it, 100%. Yeah, well, I'll tell you, under President Trump, we had 18 months of no combat deaths in Afghanistan. Throughout the world, there were no new wars. Does anyone know how many active conflicts, because we don't call them wars anymore, but do you know how many active conflicts the United States is involved in right now? Anyone care to guess? 15. 10? You're very close. 15, that's correct. 15 active conflicts. Syria, Yemen, Haiti, West Africa. And is this making the world a safer place? You know, so I look at this and I think our problems are here, but that doesn't mean that we neglect the rest of the world. I just look at the fact that when we're funding both sides of every conflict, that's not humane. That's not just. Look at Israel, for example. We send Israel $3.5 billion annually, more money than any country has ever sent any country throughout world history. And there's a reason to be frustrated about that. But then you look at Iran and the fact that we gave them $6 billion, excuse me, for 6 hostages last year, and then $10 billion in March of this year. So how can we continue to do that? Is that good? Is that just? Is that making that region of the world a more safe place? Because not only did we give them $16 billion, then Vice President Kamala Harris gets up and says in front of the world, talks about bombing or taking a tough stance with Iran. Is that going to be her personally? Is she going to be flacked up heading over to Iran? Or is it going to be your children that are going to be going over there? And so she said something very important. She said in the past, wars were fought over oil. But in a short future, wars will be fought over water. Now that's somebody who has her foreign policy and her financial policy being written by people who she's hiring directly out of BlackRock, who benefits from the destruction of these countries and from the rebuilding of those countries, plus they have equity in the ownership when they're being rebuilt.
What about Israel? Let's go back to Israel.
Yes, sir.
Do you not support the United States giving financial assistance to Israel, military aid? And if you do not support that, would you be in favor of the United States being able to sell military equipment that Israel felt they needed for their defense against Hamas and the others who wish to wipe them off the face of the earth?
Oh, sure, and I get that, and I really do. And but what I look at is I look at the fact that we're not making that region a better place. And the region did, the history didn't start on October 7th in that region. You look at the Second Intifada, for example. Israel had pushed all the way into Egypt, into the Sinai Peninsula, and they had taken control over the Suez Canal, which would have brought economic stability to the region, is what it would have done. But ultimately, they lost, who was it that told them to give back all of that land?
Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter. It was America. So I've spent a lot of times with the Israeli soldiers during the recuperation for my, my own healing, and I've also done a podcast with an Israeli soldier, and I've talked to them extensively. And the truth is they all tell me the same thing. American foreign policy is a sword that cuts both ways. And in Israel, they have health care for all. And they have some really beautiful things. I think that we could probably learn from Israel. But I would prefer that Israel were trading partners with the United States and not being treated like a blocking position. I was in a blocking position in Afghanistan.
What do you mean by blocking position? For those
Thank you.
people who don't know, okay, myself included. What do you mean by
I appreciate it. So what happens is when I was in Afghanistan, I was in an area called the South Helmand River Valley. For those of you that don't know, there are $23 trillion in mineral wealth in Afghanistan. And they wanted to keep the road clear. And so I was in a little area called Shaban, and we had Taliban on 3 sides. And they told us, your job as a blocking position is you absorb the firepower, all the hate and discontent for the area in order to keep that road open.
Wow.
That's how we treat Israel. We treat Israel like a blocking position to receive all the hate and discontent from the region because of our broken foreign policy. I think that's a terrible way to treat another country. And so what I would like to do is, what President Trump was doing, which is bringing peace to the region through things like the Abraham Accords. Peace through strength, of course. But our peace through strength should not be involved in just who we sell weapons to. I feel like we can do better than that.
So you would be in favor of that, but be above it, do more than just sell weapons and let it be a blocking position.
Correct.
But actually have a stronger foreign policy that actually brings more peace and stability.
I'm willing to die for it. I'm willing to die for it, to be somebody who's willing to be a voice of reason and to go. I was willing to die for it when I swore an oath to our Constitution. And so I am a radical. And I believe that it will take people who are willing to live courageously, who are willing to die, to make it possible so that we don't set things off in Israel. Because I'm worried about as Christians that what we are doing is we are looking at the policy. If we could dig deep into this for a moment. Behind Israel is those who stand with Israel will be blessed, and those who stand against Israel, right? But what we're doing is we're using the book of Revelations as a guide to set things off. That worries me. And so the
What do you mean by set things off?
Yes, thank you. You're looking at you're looking at the book of Revelations, and you look at all of the things that need to happen in the end times in order to bring back Jesus. And there's a theology called Kingdom Now theology. And the idea is to bring about the kingdom now. What worries me about this mentality is I don't think that it is compassionate to the state of Israel, to the people in Israel, to bring about the kingdom now, because several things need to happen in order for the kingdom to be brought about. An expansion of Israel, right? But what happens when Jesus comes back? How much of Israel is wiped off the face of the earth? How many of them die? 2/3. 2/3 of Israel. And so I don't want to be looking at the book of Revelations like, it says here, so let's do that. And I'm like, that should be a warning.
I get you.
From the people, from our prophets.
Yeah,
it should be a warning.
Trying to facilitate prophecy, I see what you're saying, can be very dangerous.
Thank you for taking the time.
And very serious foreign policy when it comes out. I know exactly where you're coming from. I think you guys got that. So that was a great explanation. So
Thank
Israel, you're not against it. You're in favor
Absolutely
of
not.
Israel, but you're actually for the bigger picture. If we're really going to help Israel, we need to really have strong policy preventing wars, preventing October
Correct.
7th, et cetera. What about
100%.
China and Taiwan? I'm going to give you a real tough one here. So should we recognize Taiwan? And what if China attacks Taiwan? Should we make it clear that we're going to defend Taiwan, or should we not defend Taiwan? What do you think the kind of policy we should have? And what about providing weapons or selling weapons to Taiwan against China?
Thank you for another really solid question.
Thank you.
So,
You have lemon tasted, no. The lemon twist, please. No, please. Go ahead.
So unfortunately, with our American politicians, we don't have any that are truly anti-war. To be anti-war, you have to be pro-love. Very good to see you, VJ. And we don't have any politicians that are anti-war. They're just pro their flavor of war. So the Democrats are pro the war in Ukraine. The Republicans are pro anything that happens with Israel. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Can we just be pro-peace? Can we just try to de-escalate a little bit? And this might be naive, right? And so when you look at something like China, for example, in Taiwan, well, my opponent, Congressman Takano, did vote for a bill that was all-encompassing, which voted to fund the war in Ukraine and Russia, to fund the war in Israel and Palestine, and to fund the escalating tension between Taiwan and China. When has spending more money ever made the world safer? I would have thought we would have bought world peace by now. And so that's obviously not going to happen. So when I look at Taiwan, and again, this is foreign meddling. Does anybody know the history of Taiwan? 50 years ago, they were basically deeded to China. And so by the crown. The crown said, Taiwan, you are a territory of the crown. And then in 50 years from now, you're going to be part of China. And so now you've got people in Taiwan who are like, no, we are not part of China. We are Taiwanese. And then there are people in China that feel like, listen, that was part of the promise from the crown. That belongs to us. I believe revolution is local. I would never want a foreign government involved here, ever, no matter how tyrannical things get. So I would want to give other countries their sovereignty, the sovereignty that I so desperately want here. What would make Taiwan a safer place? A Second Amendment. A Second Amendment would make Taiwan a safer place. If, like Vivek Ramaswamy said,
arms for those of you from public education.
if every
I went to public school.
person in Taiwan had a rifle, do you think that they would be overthrown? That's one of the things that protects us, is that our Constitution was not written by a group of people that just got done with a hunting party.
Yeah.
They got done violently overthrowing a government. And so violence is written into our Constitution. It's one of the reasons why our country has remained what it is, which is a beacon of hope throughout the world. But my violence, my oath of enlistment that I swore to our Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, I wasn't shooting at people on the other side of the world that wanted to attack my Constitution. But I can tell you that there are people in Sacramento that want to attack our Constitution. There are people in Washington, D.C. that want to attack our Constitution. And so I'm less worried about what's happening in Taiwan, in Ukraine, and in Israel, because I know that our meddling has made not one of those places into better countries.
Okay, very good. I really think you should be more open about what you really think. No, this is very refreshing, actually, because this is great. I'm glad you're very,
Thank you.
very
I appreciate
transparent. So let's shift to domestic issues. What about abortion rights? Roe versus Wade was overturned, which I thought I would never see in my lifetime, and it happened. It was sent back to the states. So it was sent back to the states, and already a good number of states have already passed laws respecting the right to life at either conception or at heartbeat or 12 weeks, etc. But there's other states like California that have passed laws, and actually the voters have passed it, which say you can kill a baby, preborn baby, all the way up to the moment it's born for any reason. In fact, You can even kill the baby up to 28 days after it's born if it's for pregnancy-related kind of issues, like maybe the hair color was a weak
They stopped investigating SIDS.
Yeah, exactly.
Post 28 days.
Exactly. So, what's your position on the issues? So the Democrats right now are saying we want to get people elected to Congress and in the White House to pass a law giving women the right to be able to kill their preborn baby for any reason at any time nationwide.
Yes.
Some Republicans are saying we need federal legislation, moderate legislation saying we need to have a law that says nationwide no one anywhere can kill a preborn baby after 15 weeks or 12 weeks, say the first trimester, which much of Europe has that as their policy. And others, President Trump says, let's keep it in the states, let the states debate the issue. What say you? Where are you at this?
I appreciate the question. Again, and there are people in this audience that are very passionate about this question, and we have talked about it, like all of you, in parking lots and outside of events. And so I'm very grateful for all of the passionate feedback that I've gotten around this issue. That being said, my stance still remains the same, which nobody likes it. Republicans don't like my stance, and Democrats don't like my stance, because Republicans want me to say life starts at conception, which is true. It does start at conception, and every abortion is a tragedy. That being said, then what is the law? Okay, so well, if abortion's murder, then what are we going to do? We're going to start going after mothers or going after abortion doctors? And no, that's not where I want to be. And then there's Democrats, and they're pro-abortion, like what you're talking about. So there's pro-life and there's pro-abortion, and no one's really pro-choice anymore, and as far as defining what that is. And for me, I look at life and I say, could we constitutionally protect life at the point of viability? I feel like that would be reasonable.
Where the preborn can viability
survive outside of the womb.
Okay.
Correct.
Which right now I think is like 4.5 months.
So some people say it's about 20 weeks. It's kind of about the number that I hear. The difficulty is with this is we want to get in the driver's seat here, and we want to write legislation that's going to roll everything back. But in California, the ball's on the end zone on this issue. And it's not a pro-choice state, it is a pro-abortion state. And so there is no talk. And then when I talk to people and they say, well, listen, unless you're ready to bring the ball over here, we're done. But this issue is downstream of culture. And what we need to do is we need to talk to our young men, because quite honestly, our young women have been taught through their promiscuity that should be celebrated, and that's part of women's liberation. And so it's going to go back to young men to bring back honor and chastity into relationships in protecting their seed. Because there's not a single abortion that has ever happened where it was an immaculate conception. And so us as men, we need to be better stewards of our seed. Once you have expelled your seed, your contribution should have already been discussed. And so we're cosplaying marriage in this country. And I can tell you, my own marriage fell apart because I had an affair on my wife. And I cheated. I never cheated on a test before that. But I can tell you that I'm not a perfect example, but I look to my family and I look to my household and I think this family that has been blended is two broken families that are trying their best to hold together. It's not a natural way that things are supposed to exist. And my wife and I have talked about this at length, that all of our problems did not disappear at divorce. We have new problems. And so there is reason, and there is to living our lives the way that we have been biblically called to live our lives. My job is to not go upstream of culture and cut it off at the pass. I want to be able to influence our young Christian men so that they have something to be influenced by. And if they're not going to be influenced, then they're going to go to influencers who are going to tell them to stack their body count and to put off marriage and then become a passport bro. Because for the first time in history, passport bro, somebody who gets their passport and marries somebody like from Thailand or Philippines and brings it back. You guys know what passport bros are. And because that's the movement. The movement is for young men to abandon young women in this country. And I will wrap up with this, and I would love a follow-up question if you have one. Shoot, I had something that I really wanted to say.
Passport bro.
Passport bros.
Right.
That's where it is. So, you know, if we taught our young men to be better stewards of life, and if we influence them, you know, about 72% of the state is Christian. Then we would have an opportunity to, I remember where I was going, Brad, is for the first time in American history, our children are choosing not to have children. And this is because the average home buyer is 49 years old. Less than 16% of people can afford to buy a house. I talk to my kids about having kids and like, that's expensive. That's too much. Because my wife is an educator and we both work in real estate. I'm a retired Marine, plus I'm driving Uber, trying to keep groceries on the table and our mortgage paid and gas in the tank. I'm barely getting by. I could not afford to buy my own house if I had to buy it now at the price that it is now. And so if we were creating the kingdom of heaven for our children, where they could start businesses and start their lives and start a home, and you know, who would not want to bring life into the kingdom of heaven?
No, that's really good. I know I can relate to this really well because I know, you know, what we paid for Hearst Castle, I mean, we could never pay that. No, that was a joke. Okay.
I forget I'm talking to Brad and you got that castle money.
Okay, yeah. No, we're nonprofit. So, but first I want to thank you for your transparency and your vulnerability. I just really, I think that's a wonderful character quality.
I appreciate that, thank you.
And so when you look at like policy then on abortion, you would be, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but just simplify it. So you would be in favor of states maintaining the rights to debate and pass the laws that they feel based on where they are culturally and where they are in their values. And on a national level, though, you would be in favor of law of protecting them at the point of viability.
Yes, I would.
At this time, and as society becomes more enlightened and awakened in the debate, maybe then we could then push it back farther. But you personally see the preciousness of human life, I think, is at conception. At
conception, of course.
But practically speaking, we can't get there until society and culture gets there. And so you're being more of a pragmatist and saying, keep it at the state level, let's do what we can on the states, and then nationally, let's have, right now where we could get something which would be at the point of viability.
No, I agree with you entirely. And so because there's two things that are happening in this country right now. There's a national revival. What does it mean to be America? What does it mean to be an American? To be the shining city on a hill, to preserve our republic, right?
Which reminds me of Ronald Reagan's movie, is coming out on Friday. Sorry, you just triggered it. Go ahead.
No, it's great plug, Brad. And then the second one is there's a spiritual revival. Not necessarily, you know, just what it means to be a Christian, but what it means to be a person of faith, right, VJ? What it means to have a higher relationship with your Creator, and then what that looks like in practice. Because in this country, we don't have freedom from religion. That's France. France has freedom from religion, which led to a very violent revolution and a lot of people getting their heads chopped off on the guillotine. We have freedom of religion, which means you get to choose how you worship or if you worship. But this idea that conceptually that we are a country that has a separation of church and state, no, that's not how this country was built. And it would only take a trip back to Washington, D.C. and our nation's capital to see how ingrained faith is with our own country.
Yeah. I know we at Pacific Justice Institute, this last year, I personally testified in Texas and with their legislature. We got paid school chaplains made available for every single public school in the state of Texas to counter the school counselors. And so, and then In Louisiana, those you get our case updates if you filled out that sheet, okay. We were able to get them to pass a law putting the 10 Commandments in every school classroom and public university classroom.
Interesting.
In the entire state of Louisiana.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that can be done in a very positive way.
And I feel like having a chaplain in our schools wouldn't be a bad thing. The thing is our children are struggling emotionally. And I can tell you that as a Marine, that there were people.
You had chaplains, right?
Yeah, we have chaplains. That's what I was getting ready to. I have a good friend of mine who's working on our campaign, who's studying to be a chaplain right now, and who I deployed with to Afghanistan. His name's Robert Shukar. He's a great guy, and so him and I have talked a lot about chaplains. A lot of people who are not of faith seek out their chaplain. You know, people who have never prayed a day in their life will seek out their chaplain when they are going through a time of turmoil in their life, because they see somebody who has always been there, that shows up every day, whose door is always open. And I'm getting goosebumps talking about it right now because I've had some great chaplains. But I think that it's a beautiful thing, and that's not necessarily something that we need to be guarding our children from. It's something that we could be supporting them in.
Right, right. Yeah, so what about start with public schools?
Yes.
Are you in favor of school choice?
Yes.
And if so, why?
So I wrote a whole chapter in my book on school choice.
You have a book?
Yes, I wrote a book called Common Sense for California, A Guide to the New Revolution. And of course, when Thomas Paine wrote Common Sense, it was 46 pages. And I was thinking, I'm going to write a 46-page pamphlet to outline common sense in California. Well, 960 pages later, I feel like I did a pretty good job outlining common sense, which isn't so common in California. So school choice, something that I called the Golden State School Choice Voucher. Hi, Sarah. Good to see you. Hi, guys. Good to see you. Glad you guys are here.
Mr. Trump, thank you for showing up.
Yeah, Mr.
Right
Trump.
up here. Thank you very much.
If your kids could take a seat in the back, Mr. Trump, thanks. Appreciate it. No, so it's school choice puts our parents in the driver's seat of their children's education. And what's happened, unfortunately, is if you don't educate in this country, you incarcerate. About 78% of our country's prisoners do not have a high school diploma. And it's because there's a lot of failure factories. And so when I graduated from high school homeless. My mom was working 3 jobs. We had a Section 8 voucher, and then after 5 years, that Section 8 voucher, it expires. And so I spent the last year and a half living with people to finish out my high school. At the time, that was abnormal. There weren't a lot of people graduating from high school homeless. But now, there's a lot of children that are going to school hungry, that are housing insecure. And so I would love to be able to put our parents in the driver's seat of their children's education so that their future success is not defined by their zip code or by a lottery. Because a lot of us, we've got these great charter schools that are popping up in our communities, but they can only allow so many children. And so there's a lottery that has to take place, which I think is heartbreaking. So if you had an opportunity, I know you don't have kids yet, but someday when you have kids, is it Jeremiah? I want you to decide where your kids go to school. I should not be the one making that decision for you. And that ultimately is the civil rights issue of our time. Because then you will finally integrate our schools by giving parents an opportunity to not send their children to failure factories that are going to lead to them being incarcerated. And I'll wrap up with this, and I'm sorry, Brad. But when I graduated from high school, I had no idea what I was going to do. A lot of my friends were getting acceptance letters to college, and I thought, they were just going to see my high test results and whatnot, and I'd get drafted into college. And I just had no idea how it worked. And so you don't know what you don't know. And so what I would love to do is give children an opportunity to learn the trades, certificate programs, licensing programs into their senior year so that they're incentivized their senior year to show up. Because Kamala Harris wants to prosecute truancy. Your kids don't show up for school, she wants to send the parents to jail, right? I don't want to do that. I want the children to want to go to school because they see value in their education.
Yeah, that's really good. I know we had a case that actually I took on myself where parents had their house raided, their kids taken out. This is Nevada City, California. And the reason was because she was homeschooling.
Oh, yeah.
And the local CPS at the time, state of California, says their position with hardcore, the Department of Education was, you cannot homeschool unless you're a credentialed teacher. Otherwise, you're committing truancy. I personally went in, represented them, and I went before the judge, and I says, judge says, Your Honor, he says, what are you doing? This is just a infraction, truancy. I says, Your Honor, this parent's fundamental rights are being violated.
That's right.
Pierce recites, such as Wisconsin v. Yoder, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I said, we are willing to take this case all the way to Supreme Court if we need to, Your Honor. This is an egregious violation of civil rights. And he looked at the other attorney and says, do you think you get this matter resolved next 30 days? And we did. And then, in later case law, years later, we actually had a case where the Supreme Court recognized for the state of California, you do not have to be a credentialed teacher. You have a right to homeschool.
I love it.
And the good thing is recently in Florida, when they were debating, as you mentioned, should it just be certain areas, certain zip codes, certain income groups that get to have school vouchers, or everyone?
That's right.
We were the ones that stepped in behind the scenes and says, oh no, everyone, and we'll tweak it so it'll pass the state Supreme Court review. And that's exactly what happened.
So if it wasn't for organizations like the Pacific Justice Institute,
can everyone hear this? Go ahead.
if it wasn't for organizations like the Pacific Justice Institute, that mother who was homeschooling her children would have been buried in legal bills. And that's what they do. They weaponize the justice system against us, so that we cannot afford to keep up with them, and we just get buried in the lawfare. But what the Pacific Justice Institute does is they represent people like this mother that was homeschooling her children for free. They don't get charged to work with the Pacific Justice Institute. And so what I wrote about in my book about the school choice voucher is, and correct me if I'm wrong about that, you guys don't charge?
No, we don't charge.
He's like, whoa. We do charge.
No, we do not charge. Do not charge.
So what I wrote about in my book about the school choice voucher is that it is the civil rights issue of our time. Because just like you said, they take rich zip codes and they say, oh, we don't want that to happen to our rich white schools. And that's the truth. And that's the Democrats. They say, oh, well, not this school. We don't want that school to be integrated. You look at some of the most segregated schools in America. They're in some of the bluest cities in America. And so if you really want school choice and you truly want to integrate, and that's what Riverside did. Riverside was the first city in America to bus in students to integrate schools. And so we have a proud tradition in this county of standing up for civil rights. And like I said, the civil rights issue of our time is school choice.
Yeah, and I think there's many parents out there that would highly respect that. And I didn't ask this question, and it's sort of obvious, but I want you to be able to go on the record so people can know where you stand on this. The border.
Yes.
Are you supportive of President Donald Trump's position to build the wall and implement and do what he did before, not letting him come across the border, let him stay there while they're waiting for their asylum hearing? Or do you like the status quo with the Biden-Harris administration? Or do you like what Harris recently came out with, which is agreeing with Donald Trump, it looks like,
That's hilarious.
And agreeing the border wall?
A little bit of flip-flopping.
Which Harris would you agree with, or do you like the Trump position?
It's a good thing that Takano isn't here, because these questions are stacked. I'm just playing with the so I'm just playing. He
doesn't know what the questions were, though, just so you know.
The thing is about the border is Vice President Kamala Harris is the border czar. She has it figured out, obviously. So what are you talking? Why do I need to agree with Trump? She's got it. She's the border czar. She's got it figured out. That's why she's running for president. She did a great job on the border. I'm just playing. Everyone's like, get him! No, so I am not of the mindset of we need a path to citizenship right now. And I know that sounds scary for some people. But the thing is our house is a mess. And our job is to get our house in order. And until we can take care of our country and not having homeless people sleeping under every bridge in America, and not launching almost 80% of our children into adulthood being illiterate and uneducated, and then burdened by student loan debt. So there's so many things that are wrong with this country, but we've stopped focusing on them. And so, in my opinion, one of the worst things that we could do is continue to have more social systems for illegal immigrants. This new assembly bill that was passed, which I believe is Assembly Bill 8050, you know what I'm talking about. So what happened was there were 18,000 people that applied, 18,000 illegal immigrants that applied for this $255 million that was allotted in down payment assistance for illegal immigrants. And so you had 18,000 illegal immigrants apply for it, and you had 17,000 that were approved for an average of $150,000 apiece. And there were two different ways that these loans are structured. One is they give you the 20%, or they mortgage 20% of your loan is what's mortgaged, which means that you have to pay for the other 80%, which, okay, that's whatever, it is what it is. But the second one is called zero down, zero payment. Which one do you think that people are going for? Okay, so zero down, zero payment is indefinitely. There's not like a lot of down payment assistance programs and things like that where it's structured for you to have to pay it back. You could put the house into a trust, never pay it back, stay indefinitely, and then when the house is sold, what happens is that you pay back 20% plus the equity in the house to the state. But do you think that anyone's going to move when they've got a zero down, zero payment loan? And so these sort of things, free health care.
I have to correct you. You said this was only for illegal immigrants.
That's correct.
You meant to say legal, like United States citizens, right?
It's illegal immigrants.
Illegal immigrants.
Illegal United States citizens. It's funny the way that we continue to play the word game, though, right? And so, because what happens is after a while, they say, oh, well, it's for undocumented immigrants. And it's like, no, it's not for undocumented immigrants. This is illegal immigrants. And so the thing is we've got a lot of people who are immigrants in this room who are passionate about this country, who love this country. They love their communities. And what we're seeing in states like Colorado right now is we're seeing communities falling apart. And we're seeing the average baseline being brought down because in addition to the housing bill that was passed, which I believe was 80-50, I'm not positive on that, but just look up $255 million in home loans for illegal immigrants in California, and it'll pop up. But the other thing that they're doing is they passed a piece of legislation last year that made it so that if you hire an undocumented immigrant, you get a $9,600 annual tax credit. So it's not enough to pay your children minimum wage. They want to hire an illegal immigrant, pay them minimum wage, and then collect a $9,600 tax credit. And so there are a lot of different industries.
That's for legal immigrants you're talking about.
That's for illegal immigrants. Illegal immigrants. Because then we give them a job. We subsidize it with your money by giving them a $9,600 tax credit, and then they're able to establish residence and apply for a home loan. So there are companies out there that are doing this. One of the big ones is Tyson. A lot of them are in big agriculture. But I know that there are a lot of questions here in the room, and I want to make sure that we're able to get to them.
Questions, and I do know one thing though. I'm thinking about actually going across the border, then coming back.
Yeah.
Because it seems like it's very financial to be illegal and not be law-abiding.
Well, what it does is it turns us against each other. Because then we start looking at people that are here legally. And we start looking at people out of the corner like, oh, I wonder if they're here legally. It's like, that's not the way that we were called to love each other. We were called to love our neighbors deeply. Love covers a multitude of sins. And so when we have these communities that are where the failure is up top, like with the trans stuff that we were talking about earlier, it's low-hanging fruit. I don't even really like to talk about the trans issues because Congressman Takano has gotten so far off in the weeds with this that what he's doing is he's creating issues for parents at their schools. And that's a shame. That's heartbreaking for me. If you're a consenting adult, you should be able to dress up however you want to dress up, call yourself whatever you want to call yourself, marry whoever you want to marry, have a ball and a biscuit. I'm a pro-freedom guy. But if you are a child, some of these things come into play. And also, if it's a woman's space, what are men doing in women's spaces? It's like a new man's rights movement. Oh, I get to participate in women's sports. No, you don't. And until we stand up as a culture, and really this is a lot, it's on women too, it's really on women, we stand up to say that we will not accept it, then they're gonna make us tolerate it. Because I was at Congressman Takano's town hall, and a gentleman stood up, and he said, "Excuse me," he said, I have 2 daughters, and they both have track and field scholarships, and they're worried about losing them to women who weren't born women."
Biological males.
Biological males, but he was in a room full of Democrats, so he had to really be careful. And still, even with as much love as he put into his question, he was treated with resentment and contempt by about 25% of the room. They all looked back at him like, "What are you doing? Who are you to ask this question? What a bigot." And so I went up to him and I said, "Sir, I just want to let you know that you're not a bigot for worrying about your daughters."
Right.
And, but you know, what can you do? And so Takano stood up and he said, "Well, has your daughter ever had to compete against a trans athlete?"
Yeah.
And he said, "No." And he goes, "Well, then it's not a problem. It's really not a problem." And he accepted that. So what can you do?
Unfortunately, a lot of daughters have had to compete and have
That's
lost
right.
scholarships, and it's a growing tragedy.
Been hurt.
It's a total reversal of Title IX, which was
That's right.
passed to give females an equal chance in sports and opportunity to win scholarships.
That's right.
We're litigating these issues right now, folks, all across the country. And also teachers being told they have to lie to parents about a child's confused. We're litigating that against the Attorney General of New Jersey and other places across the country. One last plug, to keep up with our cases, if you want to fill out those little cards, that would be awesome. All right, so now let's open it up for Q&A, for question and answers. It's $20 per question. Okay, no, all right. All right. Anyone have a question? Anyone I can sue? I mean, anyone we can help ask? Just raise your hand. Don't be shy. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
The question I have with regard to the border situation is, to what end do people, whatever party it is, to what end is there gain by allowing illegal people to be here, to have that money when our own kids can't afford housing? What do they benefit from? To what end? Because everything is driven by power, or money, or position. What do they gain by allowing that type of behavior?
It's by design, right? So our state was dried up by design. You know, our state has been flooded with cheap labor by design and new voters by design.
Did you say new voters?
New voters.
Do you think that might possibly be an incentive, or do you think?
Well, I can tell you that Congressman Takano did vote no, voted against, he voted yes. He wants for illegal immigrants to be able to vote in elections in Washington, D.C. And I put the exact bill, I don't have my notes on me, but you know, that's wild. That's the kind of crazy stuff that's so frustrating, because what ends up happening is you come in, you can get a driver's license, right? And then what happens when you get a driver's license? What do you also get? Registered to vote. And then if you're registered to vote, what do they send you to your house? A ballot. And that's gotten to the point to where we have over 8,000 people in my district specifically, that we have to clean the voter rolls and take a look at it and question them. So to what end? Why are they doing this? It's by design. It is globalists. And when people talk about globalists, we'll break it down. Elitist, the elites. They're not elites, they're oligarchs. And when we start calling them oligarchs, we're going to start treating them the way that we have historically treated oligarchs. Oligarchs want to control everything. They want to control your food, where you live, how you can worship, how your children learn, etc.
Sounds like the Soviet Union.
Well, it's a lot like that. The thing is they've advertised all of this. For those of you that pay attention to the World Economic Forum, they broke it down for us Barney style. They said exactly what they're going to do. You will own nothing and be happy. And what happened was, are any of you guys from India? Is it India? Okay, so the farmers in India have been dealing with for 12 years what our farmers are starting to deal with now. Because what's happening is this agenda, it is about globalization. We talked about the bread baskets earlier, right? Now, with India specifically, over 10,000 farmers have taken their own lives every year for the last 10 years. About 117,000 Indian farmers. And that's because they're placing soil restrictions to remove petroleum from the soil. They're making it so that they're being denied water. There's now seed life rules in India. And then finally, the biggest one is that they're doing away with things like the combustible engine. So you see farmer protests worldwide. The Dutch farmers, right? We saw the Dutch farmers. We saw the French farmers. Did you know that India had the largest protest worldwide, largest single day protest worldwide, and it was their farmers. It was their farmers. And if you do away with the small combustible engine, you strangle out farmers once and for all in this state. Because, I don't know, I've been on a lot of farms. I grew up in Northern California. I never once saw an extension cord. Never once. They're ran on internal combustion engines. Next question, Pastor Ruben?
Real quick, so your answer to her question was I want to make sure.
Yes.
Was dealing with the fact that there's a broad movement for more government control.
Correct.
And that I guess as far as the illegals getting the benefits and et cetera, that's just government trying to control more, and then also getting more political power, more voters, basically indirectly buying a whole class of voters.
Correct, but part of the problem is
that
yes,
trying to buy votes, let them pour across our nation, and
correct.
Checkmate.
But part of the problem is 100%, and part of that is the destabilization of other countries to encourage mass migration. Part of the problem is now there's a lot of trafficking. Part of that is the destabilization of other countries to encourage mass migration that is being happened. There's a lot of trafficking. Part of that is the destabilization of other countries to encourage mass migration that is being happened. There's a lot of trafficking. Part of that is the destabilization of other countries to encourage mass migration that is being happened. There's a lot of driving. Part of that is the destabilization of other countries. There's a lot of migration being happened. There's a lot of driving. Part of that is countries so that other countries there's a lot of migration being happened. There's a lot of driving. Part of that is countries so that other countries there's a lot of migration being happened. There's a lot of driving. Part of that is countries so that other countries there's a lot of migration being happened. There's a lot of driving. Part of that is countries so that other countries there's a lot of migration being happened.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Relax. Property and Congressman, relax. Property and Congressman, let's select property and Congressman, let's select property
legislation for a course? Why can you not audit classes that are already why can you not audit universities that are already why can you not audit classes that are already public universities that are already public universities that are already that you're never going to use for the rest of your life anyway.
Well, why do you have to take ethnic studies for a math degree?
Yeah.
Ethnic studies, talk to me afterwards on that one. I'd love to hear more about that. But thank you.
Kathy?
That's a good.
I just have a quick comment about the immigration and the not deporting everybody. And my comment on that is, we gave amnesty back in the 80s with
Under Reagan.
Right. And so then they keep coming in, and now we want to give it amnesty again.
Correct.
We have to stop it. If we
Agreed.
keep saying we're going to give them amnesty or path to citizenship, we end up again in 20 years where we are now.
Correct.
It's going to get worse and worse. So I'm not for giving amnesty for anyone
I'm not either.
at all. I
Yeah.
don't care if they've been here 20 years, whatever.
Well, that's where we're going to disagree, though.
Okay, no, I don't, no, they came here illegally.
Yeah.
I-
I get it. I really do. No, that's somebody said, what about the kids?
Oh,
And I don't know.
well,
Yeah,
Let's address
and
that.
so-
We shouldn't have that. The 14th Amendment was written for slaves,
Uh-huh.
not for anybody to jump over the border and have a baby.
Yeah, no,
That's not what that was meant for.
I get you.
I know I sound terrible.
No, you. So listen, you should always be able to express your
for
opinion
Congress.
without being shouted down. So in my book, like I said, I wrote that I was about amnesty. But over the course of the last 3 years, we've seen 20 million people come in here. You can't do that. I would like to see a path to citizenship for people that have been in this country for 6, 7, 8 years plus, because you do have people whose children have gone K through 12 their whole life in California. Now, I don't want all of a sudden them to go to a country that they don't feel a relation to. You can keep shaking your head, Kathy. I still feel that way.
That's where we disagree. We have that right.
Yeah,
That's fine.
I do like, by the way, I do want to commend you on your point of the original intent of the 14th Amendment. I think that was a very, very valid, a very good point.
We should
Because
stop
you're right.
the
What?
birthright citizenship.
Yeah, as far as the yeah,
That would stop a lot of this.
I agree.
we're the only nation in the world
Yes.
that has birthright citizenship, and I believe that is a misappropriation, misinterpretation of the 14th Amendment.
Agreed.
So thank you for bringing that up. I think it was a really good point.
How about 2 more questions? Got one here and then one in the back. So whoever.
Anyone who does not get their question answered, and everybody knows exactly what I'm going to say, I will be where?
In the back.
In the parking lot. And when you guys shut the gate, I'll move my car outside of the gate and I'll hang out.
Public servant, folks.
I know you guys got 67, 68 days to make this right? And I don't want anyone going home tonight. I've already missed dinner with my family tonight. I already missed bedtime tonight. You get what I'm saying? I'm not getting this one back. So I might as well make it worth it and make sure that you in the back of the room, and that you in the back of the room, and that you in the back, that everyone gets a chance to have their questions answered.
Anyone else? Oh, go ahead.
Okay. So my question is, it's going back to the schools and having to take ethnic studies. So I know RTC, you have to take ethnic studies now. I'm part of that generation that has to take it. It's really, really lame. But I found out that now my former high school, their students have to take a class of ethnic studies at least one semester. And that caused a lot of the performing arts classes to drop. Like my piano teacher, my former one, she had like a lot of freshmen. I want to say like 60 freshmen, and it dropped to 12 freshmen in her piano class. And I'm just like, what would you do? What's your exact stance of going into like the high schools on that? I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but I just want to hear your thoughts about that.
We don't have an education system, we have an indoctrination system, and that's the truth. And so we voted for arts and music, $1 billion. The next year, Governor Newsom cut $1.2 billion in arts and music funding. Now, I love theater. You know, if it wasn't for theater, I would probably be an even more weird dude than I am now. It was very good for me. I love music. I've been playing guitar for 30 years, and I know that you love piano. The thing is when you give children an opportunity to work with their hands, when you give children an opportunity to see live art, or to participate in live art, or to play music. There's a reason why Einstein played the violin. It's because it gives you a well-rounded education. Now, we keep voting for it, we're just not getting it. Now, that being said, these things like ethnic studies and whatnot, what I would like to see done is I'd like for history to be taught properly. Because I developed real estate curriculum, and I talked about a lot of things that people as adults and high school students had never heard about that actually happened in this country. Now, I do talk about race quite a bit in this campaign, because race is the cousin of economics. And when we look at the way that we are controlled through economics, we realize that it was race that was an image for it, but when the mask came off, it was economics. And so things like redlining, racial housing covenants, heirs property rights, these are things that really existed that we just didn't teach people about. And because we didn't teach people about them, now we're all suffering the repercussions of them. Like heirs property rights, really quickly. If somebody buys a house, or buys 40 acres, 50 acres, 200 years ago, and then they die on that land and they leave that land to their heirs. Let's say I pass away and I leave it to you four, and you guys live on the property, and then you guys pass away, and then it's the next group right here. And what happens is the groups that remain living on the property, those heirs, they stay there, but a lot of other people leave. But they have claim to the property rights. And so what will happen is an investor will contact everyone who has heirs property rights to that property. And if there's 16 of them, they'll contact 9. And they'll say, hey, listen, did you know that you have ownership on a property out in Georgia or out in Alabama? And I'd be happy to buy your ownership in that property for $1,700, $1,800. And they buy the majority share of the property, they force it to auction, and then that person whose house is paid up, whose insurance is current, has to then go to auction to bid for their own house. So that's something that has been manipulated here in America to try to appropriate black wealth. But then what happened? They started doing it in Hawaii after the fires. So they started using the same law to appropriate native land in Hawaii. So I'm all about learning history right, learning the names for these things, because the thing is it's new names for old chains. And if freedom is economic freedom, are we free? Are our children free? And so that's what I worry about, is that gradually we are just losing our freedom. I'll try to do a lightning round.
Well, we've got a question from
Okay.
online.
Okay.
There's thousands that are listening in.
Oh, beautiful. Hello to the thousands online.
And I'm sure Mark's going to show up any moment.
Any moment.
So here's the question. Kelly Wong,
Okay.
sworn in as voting commissioner.
Okay.
Why? How can there be a fair election? She is non-citizen, does not speak English either. Do you know anything about that?
I'm not too familiar with this, but the thing is just because I'm not familiar with it doesn't mean that it's not happening. And so, there are things that I don't know. And so what I would encourage everyone to do, I have my cell phone number on my website, but for those of you that are watching at home, it's 951-691-7798. I'll hang out with these guys until the parking lot, until the parking lot closes, and then out in the street until the cops come. And then you can call me at midnight, and I'll probably still be up winding down from this.
Well,
but I don't know about this specifically.
So one more.
Okay.
And everyone knows I'm the pastor here.
Yes, sir.
We don't really work except on Sundays only, right?
Yes, sir.
So I'll be here with you all night.
Thank you.
And by the way, this is a great church.
Yeah.
Great church.
Really quick, Pastor Ruben.
Let's give him a big hand.
It takes a tremendous amount of courage to do this in today's political climate, to put your name out there and say, hey, listen, I'm willing to host a debate, whatever happens. And so that's courage. And if you're not willing to stand up in front of your congregation without a muzzle on, who are we worshiping? So nothing but respect and admiration for this man and his lovely wife and for Calvary Chapel Inland. Thank you.
Okay. This is a comment and also a question. First,
Okay.
the question, because my son was a little bit concerned about this. And I'm not quite sure exactly how it's going, but there was a judge that had put a policy in who stopped let's say you're an immigrant and you have a wife, you'd have to send that wife back to the country they're in. Are you familiar with that just happened? It was I believe from Texas.
No, but that's a shame. I think that's terrible.
It was horrible. My son, autistic, beautiful musician, and he loves an Indian girl. And he was devastated when he heard about this. He said, I'm not going to be Republican anymore.
Yeah.
He was really upset because to have a woman that's here who is married and then sent back after being here for so long.
Wait, he's in love with a married woman?
Who?
Is that what's happening?
No. I was using the example of my son Caleb.
Okay.
He was very upset when he found out this. He heard about this.
He's in love with a young...
He is in love with an Indian gal who eventually he would love to marry. He's met her.
And he's worried that if they were to get married...
Yeah, and then brought here and then made to...
So I can tell you that that's not the Republican Party.
Okay, that's
So,
what I was thinking.
yeah.
It was a rhino or something.
Yeah, no, that's not the Republican Party. There's kind of this mentality right now of the Republican Party is the party of racists. And it's like, man, I wish I could turn this camera around. You know what I mean? I wish that everyone could have experienced the RNC. You know, I really feel like there is a sea change happening right now in the Republican Party that is making it so it is the party of the people. And you know, that we're standing up. Like, you know, President Trump and RFK keep calling it a unity party. And so, you know, are you going to find bad apples? Yeah. Are you going to find corruption in the Republican Party? Abso-freaking-lutely. You can't drain half a swamp. We learned that last time, didn't we? So the thing is for me to act like there are no bad Republicans would be for me to get up and to lie to you, which I'm not going to do. There's quite a few of them. And we've been trying to drain this swamp for the last 2 years, right, Chris? Almost 2 years, because, you know, we've had issues in our local central committee. You know, we've had issues, you know, just with the Republican Party in general. Daniel knows this. But I'm not going to back down from any fights. But I feel like there doesn't need to be so much fighting. I feel like there's so much unity that's happening right now. And when we get on that unity message, that's when it's going to get really dangerous for the establishment.
Let me just say also, I encourage your son to talk to an immigration law attorney, because
Correct.
if he's in love, if he wants to marry her, and then that's their commitment, if that's where they are, that does change the elements, and there is a track and an avenue where she can be in this country. So that does happen. But you know, she may have to go back under the law for a time period while they're processing it. But I have a friend of mine right now, and he's in the process of marrying someone, and they're about almost done doing the processing. He's been going back and forth. So he should not lose hope.
How long have they been dating?
About, I'd say 2 years maybe.
What's he waiting for? Oh, okay,
Yeah, that's
gotcha.
my friend has a same
Okay, so
scenario.
all right, so it might be time, right? So the thing is I don't think that we need to be, as parents, people that think, oh, your 20s for dating around, your 20s for build a family. Build a family. Like, I will never regret having kids. I'll never regret getting married, even the way that it worked out. There's so much strength to that, right? So if you've been dating for 2 years, what's his name? Caleb. Ask. Caleb, ask. But first ask mom and dad.
Okay.
Well, I want to thank David for
Thank you.
being here. Appreciate you, brother. And of course, my good friend Brad Dacus.
Thanks, Brad. Appreciate it.
And again, he'll be out there afterwards if you want to
Thank you very much.
ask him any other
I
questions.
really appreciate it.
There are people here from our church that work tomorrow, so I want to think about them. I don't work, so, but we want to get them home and so forth, and I thank them for sacrificing their time and effort to put all this together too.
So if it's over, and then I'm no longer in my official capacity as an MC, I just want people to know that I just gave you my endorsement. So anyway, just whatever that's worth. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, guys.
And please fill out the form for Brad Dacus. Wonderful information there for you,
can hand
and
it
you
to
never
me
know when you
before
might need
leave. That'd
them.
be great.
When are you closing down the parking lot?
Whenever you want it closed.
Okay. I will be here. You're going to close the building in what, 30 minutes or right now?
No, it'll be open. They've got to go home. I don't have to.
Okay. Oh, I love you. I love this guy. I'm sticking
We
around.
have coffee and some food out there and so forth.
Kathy wants you to all register to vote and show up. Mark your election calendars for November 5th. Set an alarm in your phone, and round up your neighbors and show up to vote. Vote early, vote often.